Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Who What Now Gaming Podcast, the show for consumers by consumers, where we ask the questions: who are you, what got you into gaming, and what type of gamer are you now? I'm your humble host, Josh Stewart, and today we have the two co-hosts of Adventure AI and those who are going to help me with today's problems. Please help me welcome back for a second time, Jason Conforto, and for a first time appearance, Tyler Crump.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, Josh. Thanks for having us back.
Yeah,
or having me back and having
Jason
Tyler.
back.
Yeah.
And having me come for the first time.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Tyler was here in the background the whole time. You just didn't see him last time.
Yeah,
so.
we keep him for obvious reasons. Yeah. No, I just want to say it's awesome to be back, and I'm not gunning for Noah. Like I'm glad that he's like the patron saint of returning guests on your show, and he can have that spot. But no, it's good to be on your show again.
Yeah, he likes being on the top of the hill. He's holding that spot. I'll tell you. As soon as the number gets close, he's like, "All right, wait, this is the topic I want to do.
Let's do it again." Yeah.
100%.
No, I'm not coming for Noah. He can have it.
Honestly, I'm enjoying the competition because the real winner is me on the tip top of the hill, just like episode after episode and content after content.
Yeah, but nobody has. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I always love being a first-time guest. The second time is always weird. Who knows? Well, maybe what I have to say is valuable enough that someone decides, oh, maybe let's talk to him again. But most people I talk to are like, nah, once is fine.
We have enough Tyler in our lives.
We have enough Tyler.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll find out after this episode. We'll be like, hey, thank you so much. This was probably not going to do this again. We'll call you.
Yeah.
We'll call you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today. I'm pretty excited for this episode because I got a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, and I think this is going to be a good time because we share the common interest of obviously Dungeons and Dragons, and but also I think at heart we've all got that gamer inside of us, and I kind of really wanted to dive into, especially since, we now have the two co-hosts to Adventure AI. I wanted to dive into, looking a lot more into the AI aspect because I got to say, Jason, you were a savior last time. After our last episode, I brought AI into, Dungeons and Dragons for my home game and for, as a player to kind of like help out with some of the background stuff. And oh my God, what a game changer it has been. It is
you've used
nice.
it as a DM and as a player then?
Yes, I have.
What did you learn from both those things?
I learned that AI is more creative than I am.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about creativity, Josh, like to some degree, they say that everything is kind of stolen to some degree, right? And really, AI just did all the heavy lifting for you and just went and crawled the internet and stole all the ideas from everybody and is now just aggregating it for you.
No, it did all of the lifting, and I took all the credit.
Right.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes, the best purpose of technology, right?
It was so nice. I run a campaign that takes place in the Nine Hells. And so at this point we were moving a little quicker than I was anticipating. And so I didn't completely have the town entirely fleshed out that I needed.
Oh, yes. A classic DM play, right?
It was. And of course I go into like the panic and stuff. And so like, I know like, hey, we have the game coming up. I'm swamped with work and with, my home life and making sure that I'm getting like all of my side projects and stuff taken care of. And so this was like the day after, or like maybe a couple days after our last episode. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot. We're going to see what happens. And I went into, basically I put the app on my phone and I just typed in, was like, look, this is the the environment. This is the, source materials. This is what I need. I need shop names. locations. I need, complete itineraries of everything in everybody's stores, prices, like everything. And then my phone went nuts for about a minute straight.
Right.
And I just had a full list of everything. And then it even gave me like, secret back rooms and how to get into the, the back areas and stuff. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah. So sometimes I feel like it gives you too much, right? Where I just want, I kind of want like just a small conversation with the AI where it's like, hey, let's brainstorm something. Let me feed you a little information and just give me a tiny bit back. But instead, sometimes it's like, I'm going to give you a full novel of all this stuff. And I've learned one of the most important things to type in is give me a brief description of, right. Or keep it brief, keep it short because it can get too much. And, one of the problems of being a DM anyway is just overload of information and what you got to keep in your head and stuff. And so sometimes I like creating that world with them. And then, when you're in the moment, it's like, hey, I'm in this shop. I need a magic item for sale. Right.
Right.
And then have like one thing kind of pop up rather than, because you don't want to read a novel in the middle of a gameplay to figure out all that stuff. But yeah, it's amazing what it can come up with. And it's important to keep that thread going for that whole campaign and just living in that space so that you can have that continual conversation with the AI on it.
Absolutely. I will say AI did throw me under the bus, but it was probably partially, my fault, because my players also listened to the show.
Mm-hmm.
So now they knew that I was going to use AI at some point. So then at one point I started making jokes, but because of my, we also do everything virtually. So my camera is over here, but my screen is over here, which is why I always look back and forth. And so by the time I ended my joke, I thought I was going to get a ha 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 ha. Look at him. He's so clever and funny. And they all said, wow, it even told you to do that. And I go, what are you talking about? And they said, you're clearly reading something. And I go, no. I said, listen, I'll use AI, but it's not running the entire campaign. I can make jokes myself,
Yeah. And for the record, the AI is also sometimes really good and really bad at making jokes. What was the we were trying to get it to make puns at one time. We were creating a cat themed character and we wanted to have it create like a catchphrase with a pun for the cat, and it was something like now's the time to strike, meow, and it would just add like the word meow at the end. And even us were like, why didn't it just say meow's the time to strike? It had a hard time doing that. So AI is still working on its sense of humor. I think it'll get there eventually, though.
Yeah, I think it almost seems like AI's ability to make jokes is the same struggle that it has making hands in in artwork and stuff.
Right.
There's just that one fault, and it just happens to be punny things.
Yes. It's the sarcasm that it has a hard time catching on to, but I don't know. One day it'll get too good, and then we'll really start. That's when everyone really needs to start worrying. Once AI has the ability to really comprehend sarcasm and those sorts of undertones,
then we're in trouble.
We're like, now we're in trouble. All right.
I like the idea that the AI, you told the AI to create funny puns. And the AI was like, oh, if we put meow at the end, AI thinks that's hilarious.
That's hilarious.
We're all just like, that's not funny. And it was like, what are you talking about? That's gold.
It's gold. This is gold. Yeah, if I remember right, it did it 2 or 3 times. The different options it gave us were just tagging meow at the end of the phrase. But like many of us,
it almost feels more funny than the pun itself. Is that
it's making fun of
it?
Like meow.
For sure.
Oh yeah,
that's fantastic. Well, with AI, how is the struggle with creating the episodes for Adventure AI? Because I know Jason, you and I talked about it before, and the editing that goes into being able to make, the episodes flow, but also the preparation that you would have to put in, because obviously, the AI is not somebody who is physically sitting at the table with you
Right.
and thinking of things immediately. It is still, a device that you have to feed information.
Sure. When it comes to preparation, that's one of the beauties of our shows. We don't have to do a lot of prep, right? Because we really are leaning on the AI to come up with the story that we're going to tell, right? And we want to lean into that a little bit. If I was doing this at home, running a campaign, I use AI as a support and not as a driver, right?
Yeah.
But for our podcast, we want it to be in that driver's seat, which means also, like, if you're going to let it drive, like it's kind of like that driver's ed car where they have the brakes on the other side.
Right.
Like you got to be like, oh no, like we need a better idea. But generally we let it drive. So there's not a lot of prep. That being said, before I same with Tyler, if we're going to DM, you don't want to go in with a cold conversation with ChatGTP, right? So you want to go in saying, hey, tonight I'm going to record a podcast for the show Adventure AI, and this is how it works. And you're going to be playing this role in here. And this is what we expect of you for this adventure, right? And we will tell the names of the guests to the AI and the other stuff, so it's aware of the situation that we're in. But that's like 5 minutes of work or less. That's not like a DM prep of 3 hours or something like that.
No, it's really not. And I know that on the last episode that you guys talked a little bit about like what we previously did, what we were doing for editing, and kind of like having to make some adjustments, and that we have like the movie magic, if you will. But it's audio magic in this case. But where we kind of cut those pieces out that are a little bit more cumbersome for us. But we are trying a couple new things through this next season. So not to give too many spoilers, but we have a slightly different mechanism.
Say spoil it. Just spoil it.
Just say the whole roadmap from here on out. Yeah.
Okay. So, version 1.0. No. No, but we did what we are doing now this next season. We're trying to essentially use so if you're using ChatGPT, if you use it on the web services, then you it's all typing and you can do everything from that interface. But if you do it on the application, they do have a feature that they recently released in which there's like a conversation mode in which you turn that on and you just talk to it and it will just talk back to you.
What?
Did you not know that? There's a little button.
And it's a game changer for our podcast.
It really is.
That's
because
awesome.
Before we would have to type in our, and we might have talked about this on last episode. But, type in what we want to ask, and then we send it to the DM via Discord, and they copy and paste it in a ChatGTP, and then copy and paste the answer into a text to speech, and then we play the text to speech. And while that's going on behind the scenes, you verbalize the question on the podcast, and so there's we're kind of like pretending to talk to Tyler, but you're just filling up space. While if Tyler's the DM, he's doing all this work, he's setting it up, and hopefully the timing's just perfect. But now we just talk, and the AI listens and responds, and there's like a 2-second gap of time rather than sometimes like a 20-second waiting period or something like that. So it's quite a bit nicer.
Then I have to ask, because after our talk last time, I was showing a friend basically like the first, or I guess it was the first adventure portion of the holiday special, which I love so much. It is probably one of the only like podcasts where I've gone back and re-listened to like a story and still like had fun with it. But I wanted to go back and listen to it because like a second time, because I wanted to listen to it again with the fresh knowledge of the information of what we discussed last time. And so I have to ask before I say this part, what method were you using for the holiday special? Was it the send the question to the DM?
It was type the question to the DM and do that all behind the scenes. Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that was the answer, because it made it almost more, it was more funny to listen to it a second time, knowing that the question had already been answered and had been sent to the AI, And then when the question rolled around to you again for the like audio portion, you're like, oh, that's a great question. Let me think about it. I think if I were to do, and I'm like, oh, this has already been answered like a minute or two ago.
Yeah, but we don't hear the answer, right? So there is a little bit of surprise, and all the reactions are real. But yeah, it is theater, right? Like there is stuff going on behind the scenes,
and so good,
and it's hard. Now there's a new challenge with it, which is when you have this feature on, it is listening to respond, right? And so we can't have it on the whole time. Like if it was listening to respond while we're having this conversation, it would chime in every 15 seconds because it thinks you're just talking to him.
You're asking it, right?
and wanting responses and whatnot. And so hopefully it gets to the point where it knows when to respond, right? And when to jump in and when to be quiet and do that, which is something I struggle with in my real life, right? I don't know when to shut up. It's kind of nice. Like we can't expect too much out of it, but
yeah. And I think AI in its current state, and for background wise, Josh, like I work in technology, so I work with a lot of different engineers, but I think the technology in its current state is in a position in which if you leverage it appropriately, it can differentiate between multiple speakers, and it could know, to hold off and when to talk and when not to, with some programming and finagling.
Sure.
But we're using essentially the out-of-the-box ChatGPT interface, which is strictly built for a one-on-one conversation. And even in those cases, as Jason's talking about, not only is it listening to respond, but it only thinks it's talking to you, right? So it can't differentiate between if Jason talks or if I talk or if someone else talks on the podcast and asks a question. It doesn't know who you are. It doesn't do voice recognition to say, oh, that must be Jason. That must be Jason talking again, asking a question, or that's Tyler responding to me, and then I need to answer his question in the context of his character.
Right.
It can't do that out of the box, but for clarity, if you had a little like an engineering level layer between that actually fed the AI appropriately, then it would totally be able to. So the technology's there. It's just, Jason and I don't have the money to pay engineers to build something that would do that for us yet.
Listen, I was actually kind of going down the same path here because I was just going to say that I've actually been thinking of investing into it's investing. It's maybe like $4, but like upgrading from the free use of ChatGPT to like the paid version, because I'm still learning, like all the things that I can do with it. And I was just messing around with some like ideas and designs and descriptions and stuff. And when I was kind of going through, I had this like idea in my head, and I wanted to see if basically the app could describe the image in my head so that it would be, I could put it down on paper, so that when I do bring it into a game, I have the actual description in front of me, and I don't have to try to play that mind magic stuff all over again, And so as we're, kind of going back and forth, it would say, hey, this is, I took this information. This is what I have for you. And I say, oh, I like that, but let's change this a little bit here. Let's do, tweak this a little bit over here. And then finally it got to a point where like, I was pretty happy with it. And then it asked me, do you want me to generate an image? And I was like, what? Like, that's incredible. Of course. Yeah. Yes, let's do that. And then it came up with an image. And I was like, oh, immediately my brain starts going to, because what I do is because all of our games are virtual, I always like to have images of like NPCs, characters, BBEGs or big bad evil guys. And so like having all these things, and I'm constantly just going on Google and being like, all right, well, give me this image here, give me this, whatever. And I just scroll and scroll until I find something that kind of fits what I was thinking about. And then I'd kind of morph everything around that. But whereas now I can kind of describe the personality, describe the way that I want the character to look, and then AI creates that image for me. And then it asks, do you want to change any of these details? I was like, well, let's give them a little longer of hair. Let's give a couple scars on the face, and the clothes need to be more raggedy. And then it starts doing its thinking thing. And then boom, I get this image, and I'm like, this is an absolute game changer at this point, because now I can just take this and throw it directly into our game.
Yep.
And it is exactly what I'm looking for, not just a rough idea of what I found on Google. So I've
and it's so important too, just because D&D is in the mind, right? Like we're imagining things, but it's so helpful when you have these like visuals that your brain can go, okay, I understand the danger I'm in now, or this looks amazing, and it can help you visualize that and get everybody on the same page. Right now, Tyler and I and a bunch of friends are in a home campaign where we are on a pirate ship and doing this, and we've got a friend who does all this 3D printing, and he printed like 3 giant pirate ships for us to do. And me and another guy are painting these ships, and it's just fun. And I was in the kitchen this weekend painting one of the pirate ships, and my daughter comes up, and she's like in her 20s, and she's like, Dad, isn't like D&D just like an imagination thing? Is it just like in your head? I'm like, yeah. She's like, then why are you spending hours painting this toy for you and your friends to play with? But it is because like those moments, like when you have big set pieces, right? Or if you have those visual images that you can lean on, it just makes that experience so much more immersive and enjoyable. And yeah, and so the fact that AI can do that, and I think it will do the same thing eventually for miniatures as well. It will come up with 3D
100%.
models, right? And then it'll print out, and you can have that, and it'll print out in color and do all, like eventually. This is going to be so fast and so easy. And we're already seeing, like, just from the amount of time from the last time I was on the show to this time, we already have like this significant upgrade in what AI can do, and it's only going to keep on going. Like it's just steamrolling.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
I agree. It's like I think that really the hardest thing to do as a DM is to get the players to think what you're thinking, and to get them to see things from your perspective, because you have this scene or this, as Jason's saying, this threat, but really getting them to be able to see things from your point of view is really, in my opinion, even though, taking those things like, I need to create something on the fly, like taking all those things and setting them aside, the real challenge with the DM is getting people to see things from your perspective. And I really see all these tools as ways to help influence that, and make it easier for you to be able to say, this is what's in my brain. Now it's also in your brain, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. I was talking we have another podcast, the Mulling It Over with Brandon Mull, that we do. And I was talking to Brandon about that. He's an author, and he talked about when he was first writing, his frustration of like reading what he wrote and going, that's not even what is in my mind. Like, why can't I express what I'm seeing in my mind? And if I can just get this onto paper, I can tell anybody any story in the world, right?
Yeah.
But it was that first little time as an author struggling through that and learning those tools. But yeah, AI is going to help you be able to project that onto your players.
No, 1,000%. I've been learning a lot about, especially the hosting this podcast, and being a DM while also being a player and stuff. Is that I've noticed that the worst critic is the artist themselves. For instance, my wife is writing a book, and she's got brilliant ideas, and I love the concept of the story arcs. I love what she's doing with the book, and one day I was like, hey, I would love to hear maybe just like a chapter of what you have going on. And she was so excited to read this to me, and I sat down. I was working on something else, just listening to it, almost as if I was just listening to audiobook or like a podcast. And then I found that she was stopping herself more and more and more because she was hating what she had already written. And I'm sitting here listening to this as a first time viewing, and I'm like, this is great. I love this. This is fantastic. And the entire time, all she could do was criticize her own work. And I'm like, it is great. It is great how it is. you over criticize. And I thought this was just a funny little concept until I started doing the same thing when, like, finding clips for the podcast,
Right.
or when I'm creating, I'll have like 10, 12, 15 clips, and I'll only use like 3 of them because they just don't feel that exact thing that I'm looking for in that specific 30 seconds or so, and it is a huge struggle to the point where I've had to have other people like pick the clips because I was there. So like, I know that there's a moment coming up, or I need like for that moment to be like 2-minute long clip, but that's not how that's going to work. And so I've been really enjoying, to kind of bring it all back around, as a DM, being so crucial to my own creations, and then being able to, kind of step into the role of almost like the co-DM type of aspect, and allowing AI to kind of fill in those blanks that I'm struggling to, or that I'm over criticizing of my own work. And it has been so nice, and it is a huge stress reliever.
Yeah. And having it fill in those gaps is great, but that's also the role for the players as well. I mean, we've all been DMs
for sure.
and telling a story, and then you can hear the players talking and they are projecting what they think is going to happen. Right. And I'm sure you guys have done that before, where you're going like, oh no, that's actually better than what I had. And so
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
That's going to be the new solution. Like that's what, or a small twist on that. And I've had players now, one player in particular, she'll even say like, don't give Jason any ideas, right? I know, like we know he does this, so like let's not make it worse for ourselves.
I've definitely
had like the end of Ghostbusters, the original one, where it's like, clear your mind, don't give them any thoughts, don't think anything.
Yeah, I've definitely had moments, as a DM, playing in like one of my first like campaigns years ago, and having everyone sit around the table, and we have this like big epic moment or something, and it's not as big to me as it is for the players, but then the players will start connecting dots that I didn't, I wasn't intending to be connected and stuff. And they'll be like, oh, well, then that definitely ties this person to this person, which means that this thing had to have happened. And I'm sitting here listening, and I'm like, no, that's fantastic. Actually, so I'm like, now
yes, it did happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll be like, and now you figured it out. And they're like, that was amazing. And like game ends. And
You're
they're like,
a
I don't know how you
genius,
do it. Yeah. And I go, I don't know. Thank you. I don't know how I come up with these things, but I don't know.
Master
Maybe
plan from the beginning. It was always in the plan.
But that's a reward for the DM, is like when like the only thing you get is your players' engagement, right? And if they are invested in the story, and if they're engaged, like that's your reward. And if they're trying to if they're trying to figure out a puzzle and they're engaged in it, great. If they're just like, oh my gosh, when is this going to end? That's when you failed, right? That the session just didn't work.
Oh, I've had so many times where that exact situation has happened multiple times. But I've had ones where I will have spent a lot of time fleshing out like an encounter, and then my players will destroy it in mere moments. And then they'll be like, that was amazing, what's next? And I go, I don't have a damn clue. Actually, this was the next 2 hours. I have no idea.
One of mine. I remember Jason actually was playing in a campaign that I was running a while ago, and I had a situation where there was a chariot races is what they were doing. And
nice.
The intent was when I had pre-planned, right, was, okay, you guys are going to be part of this thing. You're going to build your own chariot. You can theme it the way that you want to, and then everything's good. And in my brain, I'm like, yeah, okay, they can come up with whatever ideas they want. Fantastic. We'll build a chariot for them. And it was intended to be like decent sized war machine type magically powered chariots. And it was a little, it was not quite to sci-fi, but it was like really kind of on this like border between the normal fantasy and moving towards the sci-fi. And then
it felt more like Mario Kart than
yeah, it felt kind of a Mario Kart. Well, the thing, and then we're talking about player wrenches, right? The big wrench that they decided to throw in is they're like, you know what we
With a
should
blue
do?
turtle shell.
Yeah, well, yeah, listen, but they said, you know what we should do? We should steal another chariot. Like they decided to, so they decided to break in to one of these other places and then like commandeer and take their chariot so they can compete. And then they wanted to enter as two separate teams instead. So, you know, like we're talking about, like I had planned all this stuff for the other people, and then now I'm like, oh, well, now which chariot are they going to steal, right? So I had to take one of the things that I had created for the NPCs to be using and then now convert it into something that the players are going to use. Yeah, it's just players are always the biggest wrenches, but they also help tell, in some cases, the best side of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it is something that I've I don't remember if I said it on the episode before, but I have, being a DM is definitely a huge learning experience. And in the very beginning, when I was running my first game, I kind of told it as a story, as if I was writing a book instead of a tale that we were all like collectively adding to. And one of my biggest regrets through all of Dungeons and Dragons, all like as a whole, was making one of the decisions for one of my player characters. And it like he's a great friend of mine, and he's super 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 incredibly like supportive. So he kind of just rolled with the punches. But I definitely broke that character for him to the point where he ran away into the woods, and we never saw that character again. And so
that was the end of your friendship, and you never talked again.
I haven't talked to him.
He ran away in real
15
life.
years.
That's how bad it was.
Yeah, but it was like one of those moments where it was like a big learning experience as to realizing that the story, that there really truly is a way to over prepare a game to the point where you are no longer collectively telling a story. Now you're just you're telling a story, and there's just people watching it, and they eventually make decisions, but do they really matter? Who knows? Because you've prepped so much that it almost becomes a form of railroading without railroading.
Yeah, I think that's a common new DM mistake, right? That a lot of new DMs make, or dungeon masters or game masters in any sense, is that they, like you're saying, Josh, is their perspective is oh yeah, my job as the DM is to walk people through this experience that I've created and show them what like I'm saying, show them what I see in my mind and tell the story that I want to tell, and let them just kind of like experience it using their character.
Right.
And that perspective is not necessarily fun as a player, and they don't, when you play as a player, you think that that's what's happening. You think that they're taking you through this thing, and you don't realize how much influence when you play with with a great dungeon master, or somebody who knows how to essentially, kind of guide the story and herd the sheep, as opposed to, strictly directing the whole thing. It's a very common early DM mistake. I'm with you, Josh, in the same sense that in my early days in high school when I was playing, I made some of those same mistakes where it's like, oh yeah, you choose A, you choose B, you choose C. Well, you're going to end up where I decided because this is what I put all my work into, and this is what's going to happen. And then also the idea of like making decisions for your character. I never did that because I had it done to me one time. Like I was your friend, Josh, where the DM did it for me, and I was like, I felt violated. I was like, how dare you take my character and tell me what it's gonna do? No, those are the things that I have control over. So I think that's one of the big pieces of advice that I give early DMs or like new DMs who are trying it for the first time. It's like, hey, you have to remember that you are a shepherd in the context of the storytelling, and your job is to move things forward, but not straight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no,
then, and then the
1000%.
opposite, and the opposite for the player. Like your job is to engage and engage fully, right?
Right.
And like take this world and make it your own. And you know, they always talk about like players breaking the game and whatnot, but that's really what we're supposed to do as players. We're supposed to push up against that boundary of the fence and see how far we can push and go and see where we can take this story and lead it, right? Because as a player, you want things. And so when you're in this world, it's like, well, what do I want? What do I want to get? You want to engage with the story that's in front of you, right? I think pulling the story into like something that's not the story being told is not your job, but to engage with that story in front of you and push the boundaries of it and seeing who you can make as allies within that world and who you can piss off in that world and turn into enemies. Like that's part of your job is to engage that way. So you don't want to be, as a player, you don't want to sit back and listen to a story. So
yeah, no, 100%. It is something that I think everyone will you know what? Actually, I'm going to change that. I think it's a mistake that every DM should make at some point, depending on the level. You know, whatever. But I think it is. I think it's a lesson that is almost understood on a massively different scale from when someone says, "Hey, just a heads up, try not to do this," or the day that you do it, break a character, and then realize like, this is why we don't do it. Right. It is. It is something.
The hard knocks lessons, right?
Absolutely. When little jump off point here. So I am also a big gamer, and I'm a big fan of obviously Dungeons and Dragons. Have either of you taken the leap into the world of Baldur's Gate 3 yet?
One of us has.
Yes.
Well,
so let me just say this though. I have an incredibly busy life. As Jason also knows, both of us actually have 5 children. We both separately have. He has his own 5, and I have my own 5. So,
not collectively. You didn't
not
just
collectively,
go in on
no.
a plethora of
found
children.
a couple on the street. We decided to pick
You're
them
like,
up.
Hey, jump on in.
If we're measuring children by weight, I have way more children.
He does. Yeah, mostly because mine are still little. Jason's a little farther ahead of my life. But my point, I have a lot of children. I have a lot of other responsibilities. I have, sports. I have a normal full-time job that I do. And I also am a gamer. As Josh, as you probably know, the plights here. Baldur's Gate is a huge game in terms of the things that you can do, the paths that you can take, and just like the pure number of hours. I could look it up, but maybe it's better I don't. I actually literally just finished the game for the first time.
Nice.
Yes, yesterday. No, like
really?
No, yeah, like just literally just yesterday I finished the game for the very first time.
Fantastic.
No spoilers for anyone who hasn't played it, because if you haven't, the experience is actually really great when you don't know what's behind the doors when you open them. It was an incredible experience to be able to as we're talking about here, video games have the restrictions that a normal DM doesn't have,
right,
in terms of there actually has to be some level of railroading. Sure, there's multiple tracks, but or maybe there's multiple paths in a better way, and you can choose when you take certain paths, and you can go down them in different unconventional ways in some cases. But because it's all pre-programmed, there's still like an overall story that you end up having to follow regardless whether you like it or not, right? But they did such a good job on being able to, retrospective of the game in its entirety, being able to make some decisions very impactful, right? Mm-hmm. Where you get to points where you have to like choose between A or B. In some cases where the end result in some cases wasn't necessarily too far away from each other, but there were some cases where the companions that I'd chosen for my group. So for those who know, I had Lazel or Bazel, depending on who you talk to, and then Shadowheart were both on my team. And they have conflicting in the early game.
Yeah.
They have conflicting perspectives on a very key piece of the story. And the decisions that you make have an impact on your relationship between those two. And, when reading online, in some cases, if you do certain things, your companions will like leave entirely. Like they will abandon your party, right? If you do the wrong things. Loved the game. Am I going to do a second playthrough? I don't know if I have time for a second playthrough, but maybe. My next step is actually trying to convince Jason to try it, but I know he also
I want to. I just know it's going to consume my entire life, right? Like we've the three of us have talked. Life is hard to balance, right? Like it's really hard to get everything in there. The only game I'm playing right now, video game right now, is I've downloaded an NES emulator, and I've been playing the original Metroid.
Nice.
And just loving it, just enjoying the memories and just playing through that. But I haven't spent 300 plus hours on Metroid, so I know some of you guys might have done that on Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, it's we're approaching 600 hours.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I'm not like it was one of those moments where I was like, I love this game, and then PlayStation will show you how long you've put into a game, and I was like, ooh, whoops. That's a big one. But I love the game, and I like to play it a lot I also have I have two younger daughters, and so like they have early bedtimes, early. So it's kind of this
You're
thing
putting them
where
down at 2 p.m. and just enjoying the rest of the evening.
2 p.m. is way too late. They get lunch, they sleep for about 20 hours, and then they're just up in time to see the sun, eat another meal, and go back to bed.
Perfect.
Josh, it's funny you say that though, because my kids when they were younger, it really was. If they went to bed at 7, they got up at like 6:30. If they went to bed at 10:30. They got up at 6:30, so I was 100%.
Like, well, 1,000%.
If you're gonna wake up at the same time, I'm gonna put you to bed earlier.
There's so many times where I will my mother-in-law or even my parents and stuff will be like, hey, we want to take the girls to go do this, that, and the other thing, or maybe we're gonna get ice cream or something, and I'll be like, all right, let's go for it, and then it'll be time to they get home, they start winding down. By the time they're going to sleep, it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock or something, and they're like, it's gonna be great, they're gonna sleep in for you, and I go, I don't know how raising kids
Did you
went
forget,
for you,
Mom,
but
how this works? Yeah,
I was like, that's not how this works. I was like, they could sleep for 15 hours, they could sleep for 6 hours. As soon as the sun peaks over the crest of the earth, they're up, all right? And they're all over your business. It's just depends on how sleepy they are when they wake you up. And all they want is food and attention. And I'm still waking up, like Daddy needs his coffee. Give me a minute,
Yeah.
That's it. You got to train them to bring you the coffee. That's your next step.
I've made a joke before on here, like my kids will do the thing where they'll come in to, wake me up in the morning, but they'll do it in the sweet, basically as sweet and calm and patient as pro wrestling is.
Yes.
Because the older one will basically kick open the door like there's a fire. The smaller
and their
one
music gets blasted, right?
1,000%. It's like an action movie. The small one does that like Indiana Jones dive under her legs and then like pulls up on top of the bed. Older one flips the lights on, and by the time the light hits my face and I'm like able to like fully become conscious, the smaller one is jumping off the back end of the bed, and I'm getting a full elbow to the nose.
That's right.
And now I'm like, I got a black eye, I'm bleeding, and I'm like, what? And they're like, we're hungry. And I'm like, great, thank you. I'm like, good morning, how you doing? I wanted to go back with Baldur's Gate 3. I've definitely put in some time after my kids would go to bed, and I'm a night shift worker, so I live on the night shift type of thing. And my wife and I have these like kind of like opposite work schedules kind of thing. So usually I don't like, unless it's the weekend, I don't do the morning stuff because I'm I don't go to sleep until early morning,
Yeah.
And so when I do get a moment to like sit down and like play Baldur's Gate, I would definitely like dive deep into it. When I did do the second playthrough, I decided to go full evil, like as evil as evil could possibly be, because it's a trope that I've always wanted to try in Dungeons and Dragons, which is not typically a form of Dungeons and Dragons that we'll play. Typically you're the hero of the story, or at least you're the positive influence in the world.
Right.
Nobody's ever being like, all right, hear me out. You're all horrible people. Let's see where this goes. Which there's a part of me that kind of wants to see where a game like that would go, And so to have a game that is so closely related to Dungeons and Dragons with the option to go full evil was truly an incredible experience, and it definitely felt way different than my original playthrough. Not because of that I was like doing the evil playthrough, but you see the complete 180 of how the story was told and how it was presented and stuff. But you were 100% correct. When you make some decisions, characters will leave, and in the game, I think it gives you like 7 companions or something like that, and there's additional ones you can get like later through the game and stuff.
Right.
But if you do the full evil run, by Act 2, you have 4 companions that will be there, and that's no, sorry, you have 3. You have 3 plus
3
yourself.
at best.
And that's it. And
so
and
they made it so you could get a full squad, so you weren't entirely, so you don't have to run solo, but you are limited on who joins you. That's interesting. I personally have like issues. No, and I think it's great that you wanted to try it in a game setting. I personally have issues with like full evil campaigns, and my problem is not that the campaigns are evil. My problem is the general perception of people as players of what it means to be evil.
I very much agree. Yes.
Yeah. And what I've seen, my experience at any time that I've either observed people play or been like part of a campaign that attempted, and I always say attempt because they never last, in part because of this problem, is that the player's idea of evil means that they have to not get along for some reason. Or they intentionally do things. Yeah. They intentionally do things that make inter-party conflict. And it goes back to like what we were saying earlier, is like you can't tell the story on your own, whether you're the DM or whether you're the player. And it's intended to be collaborative. And as a player, it's your job in part to be collaborative with the other players. And
absolutely.
every evil campaign that I've ever seen, there's always at least one or two
backstabbing
people
and
who turn their self-interest choices always have to come down to impacting another player, which always takes away from their fun and will every time ruin the campaign. Now, if I found a group of people who understood and interpreted an evil player or evil motives in the way that I think that they should be understood, which is it's not necessarily about because you're evil, like you're gonna trip every person you run into and stab every person in the back or steal every opportunity you have. That's not
murder.
That's not what evil. Yeah, the murder hobos, right? That's not the way that I perceive a good evil character is. Like the good evil characters are the ones who have solid motives that from their perspective they see to be beneficial if they're able to reach their goals, it's just the means to get there, right?
Yeah.
Or
I know
whatever they're willing to
D&D has
do.
kind of gone away from the alignment system in general, which
Uh-huh.
I really like alignment. I
Yeah.
think it's cool to kind of see where people work in that stage. But I think the problem is when people think of evil, they think of chaotic evil, right? Which is
Mhm.
what Tyler's been describing. But more interesting is lawful evil, right? How do
Yeah,
you,
absolutely.
as a cleric in this world, manipulate your people into doing things that are evil, right?
Right.
That's when an evil campaign would become interesting, I think. But the whole like every man for himself, and we're gonna fight over every magic item that we get, and we're gonna be rolling stealth checks to pick each other's pockets, and like
Yes.
that's just like being evil doesn't mean you can't collaborate together, right? Like you're as when you're in a heroes campaign in D&D and you fight a horde of evil goblins, they are all working together on a collective goal and are doing it that way. So it falls apart.
Yeah, I'm really glad you both said those because it's definitely something that for as a whole, I think it's definitely forgotten about because I definitely didn't think about most of it. But what I definitely see like evil campaigns as being, like you think of your your favorite movies or your TV shows or games or campaigns and stuff. Like for instance, like Vecna. Vecna is, inherently an evil, character and stuff. But to Vecna, Vecna is not an evil character.
Mhm.
Vecna is a self-righteous, power, being. There it's that like good and evil do not exist. That Vecna chose to gain power and immortality through the
Mhm.
choices that that he made. And so it's the same with like when you go into like Marvel movies and stuff. Like Thanos is like the bad guys, the evil guy, whatever. But to Thanos, he was making a selfless decision, but also like holding the burden of knowing that, hey, when I snap my fingers, the population amongst all of the universe is going to drastically decrease because I'm helping humanity for the better. But as from our perspective of the movies, like Thanos is a terrible person stuff.
Mhm.
And even like back in the comics and stuff, it gets even deeper from there because then you get the whole mix between Thanos and Deadpool fighting for the love and affection of death itself. It's a whole nonsensical thing, but it's fantastic. But like when it comes to like the D&D campaigns, you're right. I did not think of the aspect of like evil to every individual character is going to be a different concept. And I think that that will make for a difficult challenge for especially like a DM. I've definitely had players where the alignments can be a little interpretive, I'll say.
Sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's one of those things where if someone says like, "Oh, I'll just say it's typically it's followed by the word chaotic. Chaotic
Yeah.
seems to be interpreted in very very different ways. And they'll say, I'm chaotic neutral, or I'm chaotic evil, or I'm chaotic good, or something. And you're like, okay, but we have to establish what chaos means to you,
Right.
Mhm.
because chaos doesn't necessarily have to be the cat at 3:30 in the morning just knocking over shit on the counters.
Right,
Like
right, right.
it can 100% just be someone who manipulates others for their own being or for their own well-being, that ensues chaos. And it's entirely up to how you perceive what you think the word chaos means in this specific situation.
Yeah.
Because you can definitely have like a chaotic evil character who is just running around stabbing everything and anything. But then you can also have a chaotic character or a chaotic evil character who is very meticulous and very like precise in their actions, and in, like, you know, kind of plants the seeds here and there. So by the time you're at the very end of the game, you know, they may have like hordes of you know, goblins and undead and, you know, this, that, and the other thing, because they were able to plant these things. They may not have ever murdered anybody ever, you know. And
Yeah,
so
personally.
yeah, it's very it is a, I think it's entirely up to the way that we perceive the word, and I think that's why it was done so well in Baldur's Gate 3, because like they had full control over the design of what chaos meant in the world of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Joe. I think that too often people interpret chaos is spontaneity, right?
Yeah.
Spontaneity or whatever. Chaos is not being spontaneous, right? Chaos doesn't mean that you just
It
suddenly
can be,
do
but
whatever you want.
it doesn't need.
But too often that's the interpretation that I see, where people believe that, oh, chaos means I think about things, I react instantaneously, and I do whatever I want. It's like, okay,
Right.
a little cliche. Like, pick something else.
Yeah.
1000%. So I want to kind of go back on something we said a little bit earlier, being that you know, an entire hour has just about passed already, and this is definitely something I wanted to pick your brains with, because it is something that, you know, and I'll admit it's a struggle in my life at the moment. But you said earlier about, you know, how we're all very busy people. We all live very busy lives. We have a lot of different things going on, whether it be family, whether it be our jobs, and you know, the side gigs that we have going on. I personally have been struggling with what sounds like burnout, but is not burnout, and I want to emphasize that I am not burnt out at all doing any of these things, but finding the balance between, you know, being a spouse, being a parent, being a full-time, you know, worker at, you know, at my job, while also finding time to do like the side gigs and stuff. I love everything that I do, but sometimes it does truly feel like 24 hours a day is not enough time to do these things that I want. So I wanted to ask, how do you guys deal with finding that perfect balance? And if you have found that balance, what tips do you have? What's something that you could kind of shed the light kind of thing?
Yeah, we have a saying at Adventure AI, which is exhaustion makes cowards of us all, right?
Oh, that's good.
So that actually came up in a campaign that we did. But yeah, the balance is hard, and I think the acknowledgement of the struggle is positive, though, right? Like, where, you know, hey, I want to give more to this aspect of my life, right? And I'm not finding time to do that. And of course, the most important part of your life that you have to focus on is your family, right? That has to come first. Everything else has to be secondary to that. And that's
right.
You know, and the more kids you have, the more committed you have to be to that family and that life and that balance. And you're going to get it wrong, right? You're going to find moments where you have spent too much time on other passions and other things, and then you just have to calibrate again and make sure that family life is coming first and foremost. Because if you lose that, you've lost everything, right? If you lose your podcast, who cares, right? If you lose your job, who cares? Bad, like it will cause hardship to lose those things, but it won't be as devastating as losing your two daughters, right? And missing that opportunity in your life to have them, because they're only going to be young once, right? Take it from someone who has a daughter moving out of the house next week and flying to a different country and all this stuff. Like that time you have with them is so limited and so precious, and that has to come before everything else. And then you just have to give yourself grace for when you struggle with that, right? And have that balance, right? But keep that focus on the family. For me personally, like my wife and I talk about this all the time. We are overscheduled in our family, and me, I have a full-time job. I'm squeezing this podcast in before my job starts in a half an hour. I'm already at work, and so as soon as this is over, I can jump in and do stuff here. I teach 4 karate classes a week, and then I take one as well. I run 2 podcasts with Tyler, and then also I teach an early morning seminary class, a religious class, early morning before work starts as well. And so like it's nonstop, right? And then my wife has her dance studio that she runs, and yet we have to find time in the evening to connect and to travel and to do other stuff together and just be a part of that, and having a partner as part of that team where you're working together and understanding with the schedules. But I think part of it is the most important thing is learning how to be present in everything that you're doing. And one thing that I'm struggling with is being at home like this, right? And spending time on the phone and other things. And, and so I guess some people just listen to the podcast. I was holding I know it's YouTube as well. Yeah, I was holding the phone to my
when
face.
I do this, dead silent.
No, but it's having, like you should never make the phone a priority in your life, right? Like when you're with your family, be with your family. When you're at work, be at work. When you're doing these other gigs, like give it your all, and then go to bed on time. That's how I do it. And I struggle at it too. I totally struggle at it as well.
Yeah.
Well,
Jason. I want to add to Jason, if that's okay. I want to hop in on this one too, Jason, because like I also have 5 kids, right? And I think people will say scheduling. Scheduling is the way that you manage it. And although I agree that scheduling is the way that you keep track of everything, and you can manage where things happen. You guys probably know just as well as anyone is that just because you set aside a period of time to do a thing does not mean that during that period of time you're going to want to do that thing, right? There are times where I have this is a gaming podcast, right? Like I love gaming. I've been gaming ever since I was a kid. I have lots of games that I like to play, but there are many times where I get to that scheduled time of gaming and I'm just like, I just don't feel like doing this right now. So managing all the time, I think a couple things I want to add to Jason, because I agree with probably everything he said, right? A lot of it comes in seasons, right? And it's a matter of like being able to know and recognize those seasons. Because for us, my wife, we had our kids really early when we were younger. I was going to school. I was working towards being the number one provider, paying for all the bills, whatever the traditional path that we were kind of instructed to go through, or we thought was the way to do things. And now our kids are growing up and my wife went back to school. So I took on a lot of burdens. We kind of go through these different seasons in life. And it's really about looking at the season that you're in, understanding where, as Jason says, your priorities are in terms of like, family first is always a good thing to go. And then making sure that you appropriately allocate that time to the things that you want to do, because we're people too, we're individuals as well. We have to have some level of fulfillment. But I think it's really nice. Jason said his partner, and I feel fortunate enough to also have a person, but it's really nice to have someone to kind of be that external person who looks at you a little more objectively and says, balance is different for everybody. And it's hard to just like it's not just a thing that you can just easily say, if I did this many hours of this and I did this many hours of this, we are now in balance. Having that other person being able to look at you and say, maybe staying up till 2 a.m. to play a game is not balance for you in our current season of life, right? Like when I was younger and it was just the two of us, it's like no kids, I could stay up till 2 a.m. playing Team Fortress 2 or whatever it was that I was playing. But when you get older and you have these kids, and it's like, oh, if I'm staying up till 2 a.m. Playing League, trying to get to platinum or whatever, because I suck at the game, but it's like it's not necessarily the right time. And I've seen people who, if you count your children's time with you and in summers, right, like you get 18 of them, right, at best, before they really start to kind of go out on their own. And then as they're growing up, that number just gets smaller very quickly.
Turns out you get plenty of summers after 18 with them because they don't leave the house.
But it's like, as children, right, and then being under your care and like them listening to them and really kind of enjoying those. So my perspective on this when it comes to balance is balance changes throughout your life and where you are in your life and how you dedicate those things. And there are times when you can add a little more time to the things that you want to dedicate to, or to build, or to create, or to do for you. And then there's other times in your life where that demand for those people who need you, right, and those commitments that you've made require you a little bit more, and you have to shift based off of those seasons. And it's never going to be the same. And just because it's in your calendar doesn't mean it's always going to work.
Wow. I mean, shit. It really hit.
I'll say
more.
I'll say one other thing too. Like Tyler and I love playing Dungeons and Dragons, right? That's a passion that we have, and we turned that passion into a podcast, right? And so it's also finding the things that you love to do and being productive with it, right? And that's what you do, Josh, right? You play video games, and so you're like, why don't I do this on Twitch, right? Why don't I turn this hobby into something productive? And I think that's just a super smart way to spend your time, right? So you're not just sitting on the couch playing video games, ignoring your family. You are doing a project beyond just zoning out and playing a game. So that's another way you can do it.
Yeah, I didn't expect this to hit so hard. That definitely hit a lot harder than I was expecting. So first off, thank you. It's definitely it wasn't the advice I was expecting, but it was definitely the advice that I needed. It is. I'd
love to hear what you were expecting. What was
Shit, I didn't expect to, like, at one point I looked over. I've been watching both of you, and then on the far side is my face, and then at one point while you were telling me, I looked over at my face and I was like, oh dude, do something. Like, you're just like blankly, you look like a sad puppy in the background, just being like, oh, okay. All of this is new for me. I started this podcast this year. I started streaming, months after I started doing the podcast. And I've always wanted to create content. At the time of this, I had all the time in the world. And it was very, very easy, to the point where I was scheduling, podcast episodes, the day before they would release, because it took all week to, find somebody, schedule something, set something up. And then I would spend the rest of the day on Friday, like editing and setting everything up and stuff. And now the podcast has gained some traction, which is awesome, but I had to buy a calendar to like mark down, days so that I can do recordings and stuff. And now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, this is a lot. This is a lot of guests, which is fantastic. I love every last minute of it, and I look forward to every single episode, because I've met some of the I just keep punching my mic today. I just keep meeting some of like the coolest people and having some of the most amazing conversations. But at the same time, it is sometimes looking at a filled calendar just immediately becomes overwhelming. And I definitely wanted to dive in because it's something that I've been struggling in my personal life to explain to my friends who I typically always have a bunch of free time to do, like, chit chat and stuff. Whereas, now it takes me sometimes like a week to get back to people. Solely because, especially, in the industry that I work in, and what is going on, just, in the, music and live entertainment, areas and stuff. We're on mandatory overtimes. So I'm working, 12 plus hours a day, trying to do these things, and then finding time to come home and sleep and eat and see my family and stuff. And so I've dedicated very specific days to doing, these side projects, which has worked out because then those are the days that I've dedicated to doing these things, which means I will not do any of those. I will not answer any of the other things. I will not use my phone for these things during the other days of the week. Those are specifically for, work and my family, and being able to make sure that, like, mental health is a key factor. But you two are also incredibly busy. I'd only have 2 kids, but I mean, sometimes it feels like 20, they're all over the damn place. But it is something that I think is, I think it's something that is commonly overlooked and misunderstood. And I think it's something that, like, the whole, overwhelm versus burnout thing. Because as I'm sure, each of you, I'm sure each of you have dealt with burnout at one point or another. But also understand, the difference between, hey, I'm not burnt out, but I am overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it can be hard too when we're producing content on a regular basis, right? Where there's deadlines that we have set up. I think you do. I know you Twitch weekly on a specific day, and then you record and release podcasts weekly as well. And so that schedule adds pressure to your life every week, right? You finish a project, and by the moment you finish a project, you have to start prepping for the next one, right? And there is no release at that. One thing that Tyler and I realized that we had to do right away is we switched from releasing weekly to every other week, and that created a just some breathing room in our lives. And then both summers that we've done the podcast, we have figured out a way to take a few months off in the summer so that the podcast was not controlling our schedule in our lives, and that helps as well. So, but I think there's nothing wrong if you hit a point where you release an episode of this show or you talk to your Twitch community and you're like, hey guys, I'm going to take the next 2 weeks off because I need these 2 weeks off, right? I need that mental health break. Like you don't owe anybody your mental health, right? You know what I'm saying? This is you doing the best you can. I know you have support from Noah and from other guys helping you with the show, but like at a certain point, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to be like, hey, I need a break. And it sounds like you're getting to the point where you need a break. And so
we're getting close.
Yeah. So just let everybody know, hey, I'm going to take a week or two. Right. And it's not that I'm ending it. It's just that I'm a human. And you think, you get with your full-time job, how many weeks off a year do you get? Right. They don't even expect you to work, every week of the year. And so if you're doing your own thing, you got to learn how to take that time off as well.
Yeah, I've been priding myself in making that we have had an episode every single Saturday. Yeah. And so what I've been doing lately is I've been reminding myself, like, hey, for the next 3 weeks, it's going to get crazy because we have a lot of episodes to record and stuff. But my goal is, knowing that I need that, like, little vacation. I've been recording episodes, getting things prepared and stuff so that I can schedule, excuse me, basically an entire month of Saturday episodes and have them edited, uploaded, ready to drop, like ready to go, scheduled, so that when those 3 weeks are over, I can take that break that I want. I'll take the week or two. I won't stream, I won't record any episodes. It'll just be like my time to kind of like recuperate, build my energy back. Meanwhile, those episodes are already scheduled to go and they're still dropping on the Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm still still producing the content, but I don't have to physically be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I also think it's fair to think about this, Josh, is like, not only does what Jason says, you don't owe anybody your mental health, like you also don't owe your time to really anything in terms of like, in particular, like, and when I say thing, I'm not referring to people because I think people are not things, right? So like if you have children, yes, you owe your time to your children. That's definitely something to do. But like things like these extra stuff that we do, like I think it's fair, not making any sort of comment about your life or what you're doing, Josh, but it's fair to like evaluate which things are actually bringing you joy, which things are actually fulfilling you, and knowing like it's oftentimes a hard decision that you have to make, but knowing when, going back to my season comment, where it's okay to stop doing something and to walk away from it and put it away and be able to say, this helped me during this time. I did great things. I created when I created.
Right.
I did wedding photography for a period of time, and there was when I went to business school to get a master's degree, and at that point I was like, I'm not capable in this current season to be able to dedicate what little time I have on the weekends to going and taking somebody's pictures and then also having to do all the edits and all the stuff afterwards.
Right.
And for me, it was a chapter of my life that I closed. Right. And it's okay to close some of those chapters and to say, you know what, this is not a thing that brings me as much fulfillment as joy. It's lower on my totem pole, if you will, or it's lower on my priority list. You can put those things away. And if later on in the seasons change and you decide that that's something you want to bring out and dust off, great. But in some cases, we have to do that. And that again, having that second person to look at you objectively and be able to tell you like, hey, here's the real talk about how you're spending your time.
Right.
Being able to help make those decisions and drawing a line somewhere and say this, not anymore, not for now. Can be really helpful as well.
Yeah. But you're obviously getting something out of the podcast. You're obviously getting something out of the twitching. Right?
And twitching.
Yeah. Don't be like, oh, I'm tired, I'm quitting. Right?
Yes.
like you do awesome work. So keep on doing it and do it to the best that you can do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like then this is the confirmation that I need. And it seems like you two are big supporters in this decision. So follow the things that make me happy, leave my family, and be a full-time podcaster and Twitch streamer. Get rid of the things that no longer bring me joy. I got it. All right.
Just write those kids off.
And then when I'm ready, I'll come back into their lives like nothing ever happened. No big deal.
Dad's back from buying milk. He's back from
How you doing, kids? I had about like 5 years to kind of figure my stuff out, but now I'm ready to come back.
Now I'm ready to be a dad. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much, both of you, for being here today. This was awesome.
Yeah.
I really like this one. This was a lot of fun, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface with the D&D talk, and I definitely think we need to have another one in the near future, because this was awesome. There's a lot of things I want to talk about, especially when it comes to like going deeper into D&D with like modules. And I don't know if anybody's seen the big changes with the new D&D 2024 edition that's sweeping the nation and stuff. So there's a lot more to talk about, and there's plenty more fun to be had. But for today, is there anything that either of you would like to shout out or plug today? This is the end of the show where I leave the floor completely open, plug anything and everything, and I mean anything and everything, from what you're working on, a favorite game you're playing, a sandwich you had last week, whatever made you happy, whatever projects you're involved in, shout them out. And where can we find you?
Jason, you want to? I don't know if you can go first on that one.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I was thinking right now with Adventure AI, we haven't yet figured out how to do a remote podcast, but as soon as we do, we'd love to have you on the show. I think it would be fun if you would be willing to
Dude,
play
that would be
and do that. I think we could have a blast with you. We'll have to figure out some technical stuff to make that happen, but I think that could be a goal in 2025 to kind of figure out how to do remote stuff and
that
do
would
that.
be incredible. I would be honored.
And I'm still waiting for an invite to play D&D with you on your in your personal game. So yeah, let us know when we can do a one shot. As far as shout outs go, I would like to give a shout out to future Jason Conforto, because every Saturday this is it.
I'm on board. All right.
Every Saturday I mow my lawn and I listen to your podcast. And so there's a future version of me right now mowing my lawn and listening to this. And so shout out, good job on your lawn, and keep it up, Jason.
Jason, your lawn looks great right now, buddy. Just keep it up. Honestly, I'm loving it. Try to keep those edges, good. I see,
they're tight. They're tight.
Yeah, I actually did compliment Jason on his yard not too long ago. It looks good, but it looks better at night. It looks way better.
It does.
You can't see the flaws. Yeah, you can't see the flaws.
I hope you get to this episode and forget that you shouted yourself out.
I know, that's like, I hope
you're just mowing the yard and you're like, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that does look good.
Yes, I guess aside from that, the shout out we got, of course, the Adventure AI podcast, the one that Jason and I are on. You can follow us at dndadventureai.com. We got the Mulling It Over podcast that Jason hosts with Brandon Mull. You go ahead and check that one out. That one is Jason. What's the short for that one?
Me and Brandon Mull and I talk about writing and creating and all that stuff. And recently we've had authors on our show, additional authors. And so we record once a quarter. We record 3 episodes at a time, and then we release once a month. And so it's a way to it's that same thing we've been talking about, right? We gotta manage time, and we just figured out a way to do it. And I'd love to be able to do a weekly show on that, but there's just no time. So we're doing monthly. Yeah.
Then for myself, I actually have a new plug. Myself and my little brother are actually starting a YouTube podcast, kind of probably similar to what's going on here. The website would be where2getstarted.com. And that one, him and I talked to various professionals and the different jobs that they do. And we asked them a lot of questions about how they got started in whatever it is that they're doing and how they got to where they were, and any sort of like career advice. The intent is to help give people visibility, and you're growing up in life and you're like, what am I supposed to do when I grow up?
Right.
We wanted to give people ideas of not just looking at people who are professionals and how they got to where they were, but also giving people understanding and ideas of what people actually do. So that's just a separate thing that I'm running with my little brother. That one's technically not live yet. So, but there is a website if you wanted to get in, and you can follow.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Hey, that's fantastic. I love that. That's wow. You guys really are super busy. That's
awesome. It's an understatement, but yeah.
No, and my wife. I'll plug my wife. She's never going to listen to this podcast, but we'll just give her a shout out anyways. Shout out to my wife. Great job. Thanks for supporting me and all this stuff.
Yeah. Listen, I shout my wife out all the time, and she's been here when I've recorded episodes. To this day, she has yet to listen to a single episode. And so every so often, I'll post clips onto TikTok, and then she'll be like, "Oh, that was really fun," or "That was a really funny moment," and I go, "Yeah. You should listen to the podcast," or she'll bring up something like, "Oh, hey, did you hear this is going on? I think you'd be interested in it." I go, "Yeah, that was episode 18. We talked about it."
You know what? You know what would be a great episode is for you to interview your wife about her book. I think that would be awesome. I'm sure really that's on the horizon, but yeah.
We're as of this recording, We are extremely. I say we, but it's all her. I haven't done anything. I'm just in the background, like rubbing her shoulders, going, "You got it, babe." She is extremely close to like finishing and ready to hand in the first like draft of everything. Like she's had an editor, like, you know, been like looking at it like as she's been going along and stuff, but like she's basically at a point now where she is ready to like submit the book to the next step.
Awesome.
And I'm very, very, very proud of her for it. She's absolutely killing it.
That's right.
It really is a like a passion. I call it a passion project, but like it really is like a passion that she has, you know, wanted to do for a long time. And I'm more proud that she, you know, one day was like, all right, I'm actually going to do this. And really stuck with it. And, you know, you know, like we talked about earlier with like the balance and stuff, like I'll sacrifice sleep, you know, getting up early so that she's able to like go leave the house and find like, you know, she'll go to like the library or something and or like a, you know, a coffee shop or something and really like sit down and write. And I'm very, very, very proud of her. So she's killing it. That's
awesome.
I'm very happy.
Well, we look forward to when the movie comes out.
All I said is I don't even need to be a main character. I just want to be in the movie.
There you go.
That's it. I said, you know, I know some tech people. I know a producer. I'm just saying we can get some advertising.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Hey, I do read advanced manuscripts all the time. So if she wants notes or anything, I'd be happy to take a look at it and pass notes along. So, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we might have to do a trade and have you guys read my son's book and
absolutely
and trade notes. So we could do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would love it. This truly has been a fantastic, and I really do look forward to you know, we'll call it a part 2.5.
Nice.
You know, we'll keep adding to it.
You know, we won't catch up with Noah, but so far we're in first place for double guests, right? The first time you've had two.
That is true.
So
that is true.
That's the crown we're going for, right? So
don't start this war. He's gonna call me. He's gonna call me like right after he listens to this episode. He's like, "All right, listen, we gotta talk."
Yeah, who's Noah's other guest gonna be? Who are you gonna bring? Noah, come on, find somebody.
Don't call him out. He's already got him. His name is Tom. All right, it's gonna happen.
Oh, that's right. We can take on Noah and Tom. Yeah, but they've got their own feud going. Yeah, that'll just hurt them.
So, all right,
and then fantastic.
The next step would be Noah, Tom, Jason, Tyler, one-shot D&D campaign.
Oh, there we go.
I'm actually so happy you said
Royale.
that.
Yeah.
So here's the update before we fully do a close here. There was you know, in by the time this episode's out, this episode has already been out. So but we had a and I'm sure you'll have already listened to this. That we have a TTRPG author, you know, on the show, and we have a fantastic, amazing conversation and full interview and stuff. But I purchased, you know, this individual's content, and it's called little you know, shout out here, The Festive 3, and it is all about it's basically a twist on the, you know, the Dead 3, but it's Jason's favorite, you know, concept here, and it's the holiday special. It's the holiday special. There it is.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and so it's the holiday festive version of the Dead 3, and it has been such a joy to read through. And I'm looking like once I've gotten through everything and I've gotten my, like, you know, how I want to like kind of figure all this stuff out. It's going to be the one shot. Now we have to decide if it's just going to be one of those things where we're like, all right, this will be fun to do, or if it'll be like a special, like Twitch streaming, you know, like, hey, this is our one shot, you know, kind of thing. So, but yeah, we got to get something going on that. I'm very excited for that one.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
we're in.
Thank you again so much for being here today, and to all of you out there for you know, listening. And if you found us on YouTube, you know, hi. If you want to find myself, I'm on Instagram at Phoenix Stewart, but you can also find the show on Instagram and on TikTok, where we will post the clips for episodes that have just come out or episodes that will be coming out. And you will also find us on YouTube. Obviously, if you found us, you nailed it. But also on Twitch every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning at twitch.tv/Phoenix Stewart. All links from everything that we have discussed today will be at the bottom of the description of this episode. So please, please, please go check all of those things out. And as always, please go outside, look up at the sky, feel the sun on your face, hug a tree, and high five a squirrel. And we will absolutely catch you on the next one.